When I, the real Heiress, finally returned to the Qin family villa, my wealthy parents were in the middle of a fierce argument, demanding a divorce. With one hand lugging a simple sack and the other cradling my large goose, I sat side by side with the fake Heiress, quietly observing this affluent couple as they divided their vast fortune. From company shares to seaside villas, and even the dusty vintage car in the underground garage, every single item was listed out in painstaking detail. Once the assets were fully divided, each of them led their respective team of lawyers and stormed out of the villa with great fanfare. From beginning to end, they didn't even spare me or the fake Heiress a single glance. It was my first time witnessing the dramatic spectacle of the rich and powerful up close, and I found myself somewhat entranced. It wasn't until the Qin couple, flanked by their lawyers and a formidable security detail, prepared to leave that I finally stepped forward to call them back. However, the pair merely shot me a puzzled look. They didn't even bother speaking to me personally, simply gesturing for their special assistant to handle the matter. "You're Miss Zheng Saiying, correct?" the two assistants asked in unison. I pressed down firmly on the goose's head, which was wriggling in my arms trying to stretch its neck toward someone. Completely ignoring those two loudspeakers, I turned to the fake Heiress beside me and spoke with casual mockery. "Before I came back, no one told me that my biological parents were actually mute." The fake Heiress looked momentarily flustered, her lips trembling slightly before she simply lowered her head in silence. The household servants either stared at the ceiling or turned their faces away, all pretending they hadn't heard a thing. "What exactly do you want to say?" My biological mother, Lin Shufang, finally couldn't hold back any longer. She removed her sunglasses, frowning as she looked at me, but the moment her eyes clearly saw my face, her gaze flickered ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Oh, so you do know how to speak." I didn't hold back, delivering a sarcastic remark with a sweet smile before turning my gaze to my biological father. He had been watching his ex-wife get provoked with a gleeful expression. When he noticed me looking his way, he quickly cleared his throat twice, pretending to ease the tension. Saiying, right? We've already discussed the arrangements for you with your mother. The specifics will be explained by our assistants." With that, he signaled the two assistants with his eyes. The two immediately each pulled out a bank card and presented them to me. "These are from President Chun and President Lin for you. Each card contains 2 million, totaling 5 million. Consider it compensation for the hardships you've endured. 5 million. I glanced at the two bank cards before looking up at my so-called parents. Lin Shufang had put her sunglasses back on, avoiding my gaze, but I could still sense her attention quietly lingering on me. My biological father, on the other hand, wore a smug look on his face, as if waiting for me to go crazy with joy over the 5 million. Instead, I rolled my eyes. "So the two of you specially called me here just to hand over money. Couldn't you have transferred it directly to my account? Do you know how troublesome it is to deal with cash these days, especially with the new year less than 2 weeks away?" They probably hadn't expected an 18-year-old girl like me to not only feel no overwhelming gratitude for the 5 million, but to even dare speak like this. The smugness on my father's face instantly vanished, and the sunglasses on my mother's nose slid down slightly. Both of them seemed stunned by my reaction. Fortunately, their assistants had excellent professional composure and quickly regained their calm. One of them took out a contract and said, "Of course, that's not all. We also invited you here today because there's a contract that needs your signature. As long as you sign here, the 5 million will be yours." The two assistants added helpfully. I took the contract, glanced through it, and immediately burst out laughing. Share renunciation agreement. Ignoring the changing expressions of the two people before me, I turned to the fake Heiress beside me and asked casually, "I have shares too." The fake Heiress could only lower her voice and explain to me, "Qin Lin Technology was founded by both families when your parents entered a business marriage. To protect the interests of both sides, right from the establishment, 34% of Qin Lin Technology's shares were designated to be held in the name of the legitimate child born from that marriage. That is you." The fake Heiress weakly pointed toward me. "Oh." I dragged out the syllable, immediately pulling out my phone to open the business inquiry app. Qin Lin Technology. Total enterprise value 65.2 billion. As my biological parents' expressions gradually darkened, I deliberately read the content on the screen out loud. 34% of the shares amount to more than 20 billion yuan. I looked up at the two of them, speaking slowly. "You're trying to buy 20 billion in shares with just 5 million. Aren't you afraid you'll choke to death on that?" Finally, under my gaze that treated them like idiots, my biological parents left with extremely colorful expressions on their faces. I looked around the now empty villa that had been cleared out, dusted off my hands, and then extended my hand toward the fake Heiress, who was staring with her mouth agape in shock. Zheng Sai Ying. Ying as in courageous and heroic, bold in both thought and action. The fake Heiress quickly grabbed my hand, her eyes filled with admiration. I'm Qinshu. You're really amazing. I've never seen my parents suffer such a loss before. I simply smiled. Although I came alone today, I reported the entire journey to Old Master Qin. No matter how overboard my so-called biological parents act, they wouldn't dare touch me right now. I asked Qinshu, so where do you plan to go from here? When the Qin couple divided their assets, this villa had also been decided to be sold. Qinshu replied, I was planning to stay at a hotel for one night today. She then glanced at the sack in my hand. If you don't have a place to stay temporarily, you can come with me. Qinshu, right now you're coming with me to apologize to Yan Yan. At that moment, a man suddenly burst in, grabbed Qinshu's hand, and started dragging her outside. Seeing Qinshu's wrist turn pale from his grip, I set down my large goose, stepped forward, seized his wrist, and twisted it behind his back. He immediately released her in pain. Cursing, the man angrily tried to retaliate, but I had already swiftly dodged to the side. I kicked the back of his knee while twisting his arm further behind him, slamming his entire body to the ground. My large goose, Little Black, immediately let out a quack, flapped its wings, ran over, and began pecking wildly at his head. I pressed my knee against his back, one hand controlling his arm while the other pinned his head down, then turned to ask Qinshu, who is this guy who needs to apologize? Qinshu looked at the man, whose head was now covered in bumps from Little Black's pecs, then at me, her expression somewhat embarrassed. He's Shen Jingqian from the Shen Corporation. Strictly speaking, he's currently your fiancé. So you're that country bumpkin daughter the Qin family just brought back. Shen Jingqian sneered. Before he could finish his sentence, Little Black delivered a direct peck to his mouth, forcing him to shut up. I continued questioning Qinshu, so who is this Yan Yan? What did you do that he's forcing you to apologize for? Qin Yan Yan is my father's daughter from outside the marriage. Mr. Qin's illegitimate daughter. A trace of sadness flashed across Qinshu's face. A few days ago at a banquet, Qin Yan Yan fell into the swimming pool. Everyone thought I pushed her. You didn't push her, right? I said. If it wasn't you, then who? Shen Jingqian, still pinned to the ground by me, suddenly became agitated. Yan Yan is so kind. Would she falsely accuse you? Hearing his words, Qinshu bit her lip and lowered her head without saying anything more. It was clearly one of those situations where even 100 mouths couldn't explain it away. Or rather, no one would believe it even if explained. This wasn't the first time. Shut up. I increased the force, pressing Shen Jingqian's head down slightly. Quack. Little Black flapped its wings and pecked him once more upon seeing this. Continue, I gently urged Qinshu. Do you have any witnesses or evidence that you didn't push her? Qinshu looked at me. Encouraged by my gaze, she nodded slightly and took out her phone to play a video segment. This was recorded by a child playing nearby that day using his smartwatch. Qin Yan Yan and I had an argument because she took the heirloom necklace my great-grandmother left me. But I really didn't push her. Although the video wasn't very clear, it was still possible to see that Qin Yan Yan had slipped and fallen on her own. See it clearly. I released him and pulled Shen Jingqian up from the ground. It looks like the one who should apologize now is you. Mr. Apology. Shen Jingqian's expression was extremely ugly, but he still spoke stubbornly. You had evidence. Why didn't you say so earlier? He demanded. Would you have believed her if she said so? A girl in a black coat with a high ponytail walked in. I had just arrived at the Chun villa and, after seeing my parents' scene, knew I couldn't stay long, so I texted her early to come pick me up. She walked past Shen Jingqian, unable to resist rolling her eyes, and mimicked his tone mockingly. Yan Yan is so kind. Would she falsely accuse you? My eyes immediately lit up. When did you get here? Ever since this Mr. Apology started throwing a fit, she replied. Then the two of us turned our heads in unison toward Shen Jingqian. Apologize, Mr. Apology. As we spoke, we both lightly clenched our fists. Little Black also spread its wings wide, staring at him fiercely. Under the combined glare of two people and one goose, Shen Jingqian broke out in a cold sweat. He could only turn to Qinshu. Qinshu, you're just gonna stand there and watch them bully me. You're really not as kind as Yan Yan. Slap. This time, before Zhang Chao ran and I could act, Little Black had already flown up and delivered a dramatic peck to Shen Jingqian's face. In the end, he reluctantly bowed his head and apologized. I took out my phone to record his apology, then dialed a number. The other end connected quickly. Without waiting for the other party to speak, I took the initiative. Old man, The way the Chin family handles things is really unreliable. It's our Chin family. The other side immediately corrected me. It was old Master Chin, my grandfather. I had gotten to know him at a fishing event at the nursing home in our county. That day, he sat to my left, equipped with the best fishing rod, yet hadn't caught a single fish all afternoon. Instead, the bait he cast accidentally helped gather the fish in my area. Seeing my bucket overflowing with fish, he tried to strike up a conversation to ask for my secret, only to discover that my face greatly resembled his deceased youngest daughter. He immediately had someone investigate my background. That's how the story of me and Chin Shu being swapped at birth came to light. After chatting a bit more with old Master Chin, I understood. Today, he had deliberately not arranged for anyone to escort me to meet my biological parents, and hadn't warned me about their strange situation precisely to test me. If I had naively signed the share renunciation document my parents presented, he would have had to reconsider my position in the future of the Qin family. So what's the deal with this Shen Jingqin? I asked. What? Not satisfied with this marriage partner? Old Master Qin said. It depends on how much value he holds for your more than 20 billion in shares. I spoke directly. Old Master Qin didn't beat around the bush either. The Shen family heir is his older brother. He also has a very capable second sister. The core assets of the Shen Corporation won't have much to do with him in the future. However, old Madam Shen is the third, largest shareholder in Qin Lin Technology. She's very fond of this youngest grandson. The shares in her hands are very likely to be given to Shen Jingqun in the future. Oh. I paused to think for a moment before speaking. Can you help me with something, Grandpa? Oh my. Old Master Qin laughed heartily on the other end. Calling me Grandpa wasn't in vain. Tell me, what is it? Today I want to take Shen Jingqin and Qin Shu back to my foster parents' home with me. Help me handle things on the Shen family's side. Are you trying to cultivate feelings? The old man asked. No, it's for reform. I replied calmly. This young master opens his mouth, and it's all that overbearing CEO nonsense from short dramas. Having a fiancé like him makes me look lacking in taste. With that, I hung up. When I turned around, both Shen Jingqin and Qin Shu were staring at me with their mouths wide open. Stop standing there like idiots. Let's go. On what basis are you taking me? Shen Jingqin finally snapped out of it and immediately shouted. Besides, who says I'm your fiancé? I'm the real heiress of the Qin family. The marriage was arranged between the Qin and Shen families. Naturally, the engagement should fall to me. I turned to ask Qin Shu. Oh right, I haven't asked your opinion yet. Do you still want this fiancé? Qin Shu immediately shook her head like a rattled drum. Her face even showed obvious relief, as if she had just escaped a nuisance. I nodded. I have no objections. Your former fiancé also has no objections. You're the only one making a fuss. Shen Jingqin's face flushed red from being choked by my words. Little Black saw this and jumped up again, pecking his leg. Under the threat of force from me, Zhang Chao ran, Little Black, and Shen Jingqin finally obediently followed us onto the delivery truck from the Zhang family's workshop. This young master has never sat in such a shabby vehicle in his life. On the ride, Shen Jingqin kept complaining nonstop. I found it annoying, so I raised 2 fingers, just like when I pinched a goose's beak, and clamped his muttering mouth shut. This is how I usually handle it when Little Black gets too noisy. What are you doing? He panicked and swatted my hand away. You're very noisy. I leaned in close and threatened in a low voice. From now on, keep your mouth shut for me. He suddenly stared at my face. The annoyance in his eyes suddenly changed, and even his ears turned red as if scorched by fire. What's wrong? I asked in confusion, turning to Qin Shu. Qin Shu glanced at Shen Jingqin. Her face clearly showed, just as expected, mixed with a bit of helplessness. He's secretly admired the late youngest daughter of the Qin family since he was young. Previously, because Qin Yanyan resembled her more than I did, he always helped Qin Yanyan. But you resemble her even more than Qin Yanyan does. Ha, what kind of melodramatic look-alike trope is this? Zhang Charan, who was driving, looked through the rearview mirror and sneered. This overbearing CEO brainrot setup of yours is really something special. What nonsense are you all spouting? I was just... Alright, shut up. I cut Shen Jingqin off with one sentence before turning to Qin Shu. You probably haven't ridden in a vehicle like this before either, right? Qin Shu froze for a moment before hurriedly shaking her head. No, I think this truck is pretty good actually. As we chatted along the way, I also gained a general understanding of my biological parents' situation. Simply put, my biological father was someone who could never forget his first love, while my mother had her heart set on someone else. Their marriage was purely for business, yet both had their own lovers on the side. My father had an illegitimate daughter, Qin Yan Yan, and an illegitimate son, Qin Gu. His illegitimate son was even a year older than me. My mother also had her own illegitimate daughter, who was only 3 years old this year. This couple had raised Qin Shu to be someone who always tried to please others, all in order to fight over the 34% shares of Qin Lin Technology. Qin Shu had nearly been successfully brainwashed by them, planning to sign the share renunciation document once she came of age. They never expected me, a real golden phoenix, to suddenly appear midway and ruin their plans. That's why they had called me to the Qin villa. Several hours later, the truck pulled into the courtyard of my home. Getting out of the vehicle, I couldn't help but pat Qin Shu on the shoulder. These past few years in the Qin family must have been tough for you. Having to deal with this idiotic fiancé while facing my worthless biological parents. Who are you calling an idiot? Shen Jingqian yelled. Moreover, this young master hasn't even agreed to the marriage with you yet. The moment his words fell, a loud clang came from the neighboring house next to mine. Looking up, I saw my childhood friend and ex-boyfriend, Gumo. He was wearing a casual home jacket, standing on the other side of the low fence. The stainless steel basket in his hand had fallen to the ground. Zhang Xiying, you're getting engaged? He asked, his face pale. Oh, isn't this the great philosopher? You're free today. And eavesdropping on our conversation, don't you need to stay with your Linianian anymore? Zhang Qiaoran leaned against the car window, her face full of mockery as she looked at Gumo. Gumo's family ran an electronics workshop. In recent years, they had received several large processing orders from big companies and were developing quite well, which had made Gumo somewhat arrogant. Linianian was the daughter of Gumo's father's friend. She had moved over because her family was in trouble. Because of her, Gumo had gone against his initial promise to me to stay in the province and attend University Z, instead going with Linianian to study inland. For that, he had even delivered a whole speech about how pitiful Linianian was, and how I shouldn't be so petty. That's why Zhang Qiaoran specially nicknamed him, Great Philosopher. Stop looking. Let's go inside. I carried Little Black past the curious Shen Jingqian and Qin Shu, heading straight into the house. Zhang Qiaoran backed the truck out of my small courtyard to park it elsewhere. This year, my cousin on my mother's side had brought his girlfriend back to the Northeast to meet his parents. My mother had originally planned to take the whole family to the Northeast to spend New Year with them. My plane ticket had already been bought. It was only because of this Qin family matter that, in the end, only the 3 of them went. My house was the typical 3-story self-built small villa commonly seen in Zhejiang province countryside. Normally, my parents stayed on the first floor, my younger brother's room and the living room on the second, and the third floor was half my room and living area, with the other half being the balcony and laundry room. I led Shen Jingqian and Qin Shu to the second floor to choose rooms. Looking at the rooms with natural wood flooring, and each equipped with separate dry, wet bathrooms to standard, Shen Jingqian showed a bit of surprise. The living conditions in the countryside are this good nowadays. Or what, did you think everyone lives in those short dramas like you? Qin Shu muttered softly in retort. When Shen Jingqian glared at her, she unconsciously hid behind me. Shen Jingqian opened his mouth, about to say something unpleasant again. I clenched my fist at him, and he could only swallow his words, his face turning red with frustration as he went downstairs angrily. Phew! Qin Shu let out a breath of relief and couldn't help laughing. That felt so good. Actually, I've wanted to talk back to him like that for a long time. I then led Qin Shu up to the third floor. From my room, I took out a framed picture containing a newspaper clipping. The headline read, Bus overturns. Young couple sacrifices themselves to protect daughter. Girl miraculously survives. That year, after I and Qin Shu were swapped, her biological parents had been taking me back to the countryside when they encountered a serious accident. The bus overturned, and out of the entire vehicle, only 5 people survived. At the time, I was still a newborn baby. The reason I survived was because Qin Shu's biological parents had used their bodies to shield me. In the past, whenever the village children called me an adopted orphan, my foster mother would take out this newspaper clipping, hug me in her arms, and comfort me. This is for you, I said. Qin Shu looked at me and accepted the frame. When she saw the content inside, her eyes immediately reddened. These are them, she asked carefully. I nodded. No matter what my biological parents are like, you should know that your biological parents were the best parents in the world. They loved their daughter so much, and that daughter is you. Qin Shu hugged the frame tightly, choking out her thanks. I gently embraced her. You've been through a lot these past years. When Qin Shu and I came downstairs, Zhang Qiaoran had already returned, bringing an electric tricycle full of items. 4 sets of thick coral fleece home clothes. 2 sets for Shen Jingqian and 2 for Qin Shu, produced by her family's workshop. This young master absolutely refuses to wear this kind of thing. Shen Jingqian started complaining again, but when he saw that Zhang Chaoran, Qin Shu, and I had already gone upstairs to change, Qin Shu was wearing my old set while the new one was in the washing machine. Watching the 3 of us sit down together in matching home clothes, he suddenly felt out of place and awkward. It wasn't until after we finished eating some snacks and went out to ride Zhang Chaoran's electric tricycle to the supermarket at the head of the village bridge that Shen Jingqian felt even more that his designer outfit was completely out of place in the scene. Almost pretentious. We bought some snacks in the supermarket, along with spare clothes, daily necessities for Qin Shu and Shen Jingqian. When we went to the checkout counter, we ran into Gumo and Linianian. Linianian was wearing a matching couple's fleece jacket with Gumo. She had her arm linked with his. The moment she saw us, she sweetly greeted Zhang Chaoran and me. Sister Siying, Sister Chaoran, as if nothing had ever happened between us. Oh, acting all familiar again. Zhang Chaoran generously greeted back, but your fake friendliness is useless. I don't have a boyfriend for you to steal. Half the people in this supermarket were familiar faces. Upon hearing that, curious eyes immediately turned our way. Not wanting to become the center of gossip, Gumo immediately glared at Zhang Chaoran in warning and pulled the pale-faced Linianian away. Watching their awkward retreating figures, Zhang Chaoran shrugged. Why do these 2 keep getting hit but never learn their lesson? What happened before? Qin Shu approached and asked softly. Shen Jingqian also perked up his ears to listen. It was nothing much, Zhang Chaoran said. After the college entrance exam results came out, that Gumo guy ran over to Siying and delivered a whole speech, saying that although he was going to study at the Inland University with his Nianian, Li Nianian was very pitiful. Because of this, she was being gossiped about by classmates and under a lot of pressure, so Siying should be generous and forgive him, even take the initiative to apologize to Li Nianian. And then, Qin Shu asked. Then I directly posted the video of him saying that to the entire grade's group chat, and started a poll for the whole grade to decide whether I should apologize or not. I said nonchalantly. Nice, beautifully done. Shen Jingqian clenched his fist and let out a soft "Teesk." There are still people who play the I'm weak so I'm right card these days. I think he's even more of a fool than I am. Am I wrong? I mimicked the tone he had used when speaking to Qin Shu earlier. Yan Yan is so kind. Would she falsely accuse you? Weren't you the one who believed her, because you thought Qin Yan Yan was kind and fragile? Sorry. Shen Jingqian froze, his face cycling through multiple colors as he swallowed a bellyful of anger. It wasn't until we returned to my small courtyard that he finally seemed to vent some steam. He lowered his head and said a sentence of apology to Qin Shu. This time it was Qin Shu's turn to be stunned. It took her a long while before she stammered in response. And no, it's fine. It can still be taught. Zhang Chaoran contentedly patted Shen Jingqian on the shoulder. The next morning, I controlled the electric curtains in Shen Jingqian's room, forcefully waking him up. With a face full of annoyance, he scratched his messy chicken nest hair and came downstairs, but he was already wearing the home fleece outfit that Zhang Chaoran had given him yesterday. Qin Shu had woken up early and brought up the bowl of snow vegetable stir-fried noodles I had cooked, placing it on the table. It smells so good. Shen Jingqian's eyes lit up. Eat. I pushed a large bowl of noodles in front of him. Eat plenty. After you're done, follow me to work. Shen Jingqian. Work. Half an hour later, Qin Shu and Shen Jingqian, each wearing a straw hat and a checkered protective coat, stood side by side in front of me. Is this a vineyard? Shen Jingqian looked at several grape trellises with their plastic coverings removed, somewhat uncertain. I nodded. These are the new varieties. There's another plot of land below. As I spoke, I stuffed 2 pruning shears into their hands. First, watch how I prune. I explained which grape branches needed to be removed while demonstrating the pruning motions. My foster parents run a logistics company, right? So why are we still doing this kind of farm work? Shen Jingqian frowned as he asked. This is the vineyard belonging to our best friend's family. Right then, Zhang Chaoran walked over, also wearing a straw hat and work overalls. The best friend Zhang Chaoran spoke of was Zhao Wan. Back in middle school, the 3 of us were known throughout the entire top county school as the 3 Musketeers. When we reached high school, Zhao Wan, the rare student from our rural county, who actually got into Tsinghua or Peking University, was noticed by an elite academy. She had lost both her parents at 13 and only had her grandmother to rely on. That tiny girl had gone to the neighborhood committee all by herself, clutching her parents' death certificates to apply for orphan subsidies. In front of the whole class, she submitted the paperwork for tuition waivers. Her grandmother, wanting a better life for her granddaughter, had even taken on small sewing jobs at home. An elderly woman like that would put on her broken old reading glasses whenever she had a spare moment and painstakingly study sewing patterns. To lighten her grandmother's burden and get a better education, Zhao Wan transferred to that elite school. The first 2 years went smoothly, but at the start of her senior year, she suddenly fell from a height. By the time we got the news, she was already in the hospital, completely unconscious. The final investigation report only listed one word: accident. That elite family offered nothing more than a token humanitarian compensation and considered the matter closed. In the end, it was the village committee and neighborhood office that stepped in to handle her medical treatment. But the shock caused her grandmother to fall ill as well. Whenever she was lucid, the old lady would mumble about her grape vineyard, saying that once the grapes ripened she would sell them and use the money for Zhao Wan's university tuition. That whole period was one disaster after another. Even I nearly got hit by a car. Zhang Chaoran continued. We didn't want the old lady to lose her last bit of spiritual support, so we took over caring for those 2 vineyard plots. Things like fertilizing and watering are handled by villagers we hired. The small chores, pruning branches, tying vines, we and Zhang Chaoran squeeze in during school breaks to do ourselves. Once the grapes ripen, we handle the sales too. Part of the harvest is bought internally by my dad and Uncle Zhang as employee benefits. The rest, Zhang Chaoran and I personally visit nearby factories to sell. Luckily, this new grape variety ripens right during summer vacation. During that time, we were basically busy harvesting and packing grapes every single day. After packing, the 2 of us, who weren't even legal adults yet, would drive the electric tricycle around delivering orders everywhere. After hearing the whole story, Qin Zhu's eyes turned slightly red. Even Shen Jingchun, who had been full of complaints about being dragged here, gradually fell silent and stopped grumbling. The 4 of us worked seriously through the entire morning. When we saw that Shen Jingqin and Qin Zhu's hands were already shaking from exhaustion, I said, "Let's call it a day for this afternoon." I checked the weather forecast. Sunny all week, so we can take it slow. No rush. The 2 of them were so tired they barely finished eating before collapsing into bed and sleeping straight through until 3 in the afternoon. When Zhang Chaoran saw them awake, she quietly put away the stack of Qin family documents that had been on the coffee table and pulled out a deck of cards instead, calling them over to play. "Oh right, what kind of person is my father's illegitimate son, Qin Go?" I asked while shuffling the cards. "Why are you suddenly asking about him?" Shen Jingqin, whose face was already covered in paper slips from losing, looked up. "I want to see whether he poses any threat to my more than 20 billion in shares," I answered. Qin Shu shook her head. "I went to public school, while he and Qin Yan both attended the private academy under the Qin family. But he mostly stayed at the old house and rarely came to the main villa. Plus, I remember he went abroad for an exchange program shortly after starting his senior year, so I honestly don't know much about him." "What about you?" I turned to Shen Jingqian. "We went to the same middle school. He was average, nothing special. If it weren't for the fact that he's Yan Yan's brother." Shen Jingqian glanced at my expression before continuing. "In general, we don't get along. But if you're worried he might eye your shares, I can have someone keep tabs on him for you." At that point, Shen Jingqian's face flushed red for no apparent reason. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention and simply asked Qin Shu, "Oh right, why exactly is it 34% of the shares?" Qin Shu paused for a second before quickly understanding. According to company law, major decisions like amending the charter, increasing or decreasing capital, mergers, or splits require approval from more than 2/3 of the shareholders to take effect. 34% exceeds 1/3. In other words, whoever holds these shares has veto power over the company's major decisions. "You studied this?" I asked. Qin Shu smiled a little sheepishly. "Mr. Qin always hoped I'd study the arts, but Madam Lin insisted I major in business." I raised an eyebrow. In my heart, I had basically confirmed my earlier guess. Early the next morning, Shen Jingqin actually woke up on his own at the crack of dawn. After breakfast he voluntarily changed into rubber boots and a protective coat. We kept up the routine of working half a day, and resting half a day for a week and a half, until we finally finished pruning both small vineyard plots. During that time, Shen Jingqin and Qin Shu learned how to play with firecrackers from the little neighborhood girl bosses behind my house, and went up the mountain with their father to dig bamboo shoots. When they got home, Shen Jingqin loudly demanded goose stewed with fresh bamboo shoots, only to be chased around and pecked on the legs by Little Black. Of course, Gumo also came looking for me several times, but he was blocked every time by Zhang Chaoran and Shen Jingqian. That day, Zhang Chaoran and I drove the electric tricycle to haul back the bundles of pruned grapevines we had cut earlier. Shen Jingqian's hands itched just watching. After half a day of mental preparation, he finally spoke up and asked to try. I wasn't the type to kill someone's enthusiasm, so I tossed him the keys, gave him a quick rundown on how to drive, and hopped onto Jiang Chaoran's vehicle. Who would have guessed that the moment Shen Jingqian took the wheel, he lost control and drove the tricycle straight into a ditch. Luckily, Qin Shu beside him reacted fast and slammed on the brakes. Little Black, who had been chasing the Gu family's dog, was so delighted he flapped his wings and quacked loudly. "Can you even handle this?" Qin Shu asked with clear disdain. Over the past few days she had completely stopped being afraid of Shen Jingqian. "You think this is that easy to drive?" Shen Jingqian refused to accept it. "Move aside. Let me." Qin Shu snatched the keys, turned the ignition, took a deep breath, and slowly twisted the throttle. Before long, the tricycle was gliding smoothly. She proudly circled Shen Jingqian once, full of swagger as she said, "If you're no good at something, practice more." Only after she finished speaking did she realize what she had just said. She stopped the vehicle and looked at Shen Jingqian cautiously. But he didn't seem to have noticed at all. He simply muttered to himself, "This doesn't make sense. Am I really not a genius?" Qin Shu rolled her eyes. After we finished gathering the pruned vines, Zhang Chaoran and I made a trip to the town hospital. Shen Jingqian insisted on tagging along, so we brought Qin Shu with us too. Zhao Wan's hospital room was very quiet. When we arrived, the nurse was turning her over and exercising her limbs. After the nurse left, Zhang Chaoran and I did what we always did, told her about the grapes, about her grandmother, and finally about everything that had happened to us lately. Zhang Chaoran adjusted her sleeve to cover the round burn scar on her arm as she spoke. "One, you know what? Seeing turned out to be the real Heiress of that wealthy family. Can you believe it? Not only that, she has shares worth more than 20 billion yuan. If you wake up right now, you'll be best friends with a female tycoon." Cho Ran, that's right. Sai Ying even has a fiancé from a marriage alliance. It's him over there. The full-on overbearing CEO from those short dramas. Zhao Wan, hurry up and wake up. Sai Ying and I have already started university. We're all moving forward. I don't want you to stay stuck here alone. We still have so many things we promised to do together. Zhang Chaoran's eyes reddened. I took a deep breath too. On the way home we stopped by the nursing home to visit Zhao Wan's grandmother. That evening we lit a bonfire in the courtyard. The pruned grapevines crackled and popped in the flames. This was an activity Shen Jingqian normally hated most, yet every time he sat around the fire pit with tongs in hand, he had the silly, happy look of a city kid experiencing something new. But tonight he sat silently on the steps. "What's wrong, brother brooding?" I sat down beside him and asked gently. He turned to look at me seriously for a moment, then turned back to the dancing flames. "I was thinking, if one day I lost everything and ended up lying in a hospital bed, would anyone do this much for me?" He paused, then laughed at himself. "But no matter how hard I think, I can't come up with a single person. My friends, if the Shen family falls, they'll immediately draw a clear line between us. My parents, in their eyes, only someone valuable deserves to be called a Shen child. Of course, my grandmother loves me very much. She would be heartbroken and would definitely hire the best medical team for me. Don't you still have that kind-hearted sister Yan Yan?" I said. Shen Jingqian thought seriously for a moment before shaking his head. "She would probably just send me flowers, cry about how helpless she is, then obediently listen to Mr. Qin and find another marriage alliance partner." "Looks like you're not completely stupid after all," I said. "I was never stupid," Shen Jingqian replied. "Then you're even more deserving of a beating." I reached out and flicked his forehead. "What now?" Shen Jingqian clutched his head and asked me aggrievedly. "You can see your friends clearly. You can see your parents clearly. You can even see Chun Yan Yan clearly. That proves your judgment isn't so poor that you'd be fooled by her cheap slander tactics. Yet for years you still blindly listened to her and acted as her pawn, helping her suppress Qin Shu." Shen Jingqian lowered his head and muttered, "I didn't mean to, and haven't I already changed? I apologized to Qin Shu, and she forgave me." "Shen Jingqian," I spoke seriously. "First, Qinshu forgave you because she's kind-hearted, not because the pain you caused her didn't hurt. Second, if we hadn't been switched at birth, the one being suppressed in the Qin family would have been me. I won't turn a blind eye to this kind of harm, just because it didn't happen to me. Shen Jingqian. If it were me, I would never have helped Yan Yan in the first place. Shh. I sighed. You still don't get the core issue. The problem has never been who received favoritism. The problem is what right you had to stand on a pedestal and judge Qin Shu and Qin Yan Yan. You say your friends are pragmatic, but have you ever considered that you yourself have never looked at them as equals? Because the Shen family is a top-tier wealthy household, you naturally feel you're a level above your friends. Because you were Qin Shu's fiancé, you thought you had the right to control her life, make her take the blame for things she never did, and even force her to apologize for things that didn't require apology. You hope that when you fall to rock bottom, someone will still love your soul and care about your feelings. Yet you yourself have always stood above others, unwilling to step down, unwilling to look them in the eye, and truly understand the people around you. Favoritism from someone in a high position may be a kind of luck when it comes to benefits, but in emotions, only when two people can speak as equals can they truly reach each other's sincere hearts. So that's why you hate Gumo so much. Shen Jingqian glanced at me and suddenly asked, I noticed your attitude toward Linianian is actually better than toward Gumu. Linianian is annoying, sure, but in the end, the person who needs to take responsibility for what happened between me and him is still Gumu. I turned my head and looked toward the low fence, where Gumo had been standing for who knows how long. I know what you're thinking. Back then our two families were equal in status, but at school you were always beneath me. Plus, with my personality, our friends used to tease you for being afraid of your wife. These past 2 years your family's workshop has been doing well, but our relationship stayed exactly the same. Whether out of jealousy or male pride, Linianian's appearance just gave you a perfectly legitimate excuse to suppress me. But Gumu. I stood up and looked him straight in the eye. The way you tried to drag both me and Linianian onto the judgment platform you built yourself, while standing on high ground as the judge, really looks ugly. With that, I turned and walked into the house, leaving Gumo standing pale in the cold wind. Shen Jingqian, on the other hand, looked extremely pleased as he made an out gesture at him. Your ex is out. Pack up and leave. Tomorrow we're going back to the Qin family. Once inside, I told Qinshu and Shen Jingqian, we're going back for New Year's dinner. Are we going too? Shen Jingqian asked. I nodded. Do I have to go as well? Qinshu asked hesitantly, clearly reluctant. If you really don't want to, you don't have to. But if you want to get that heirloom necklace your old madam gave you back with your own hands, I think you should go. I explained that old madam was an elderly lady at the nursing home next to Qinshu's high school. In the past, on weekends Qinshu would often volunteer there, keeping the seniors company. When she was young, old madam had owned a gold shop and had taken a great liking to Qinshu. Before her daughter took her abroad, she personally made Qinshu a necklace as a coming-of-age gift for when she turned 18. At the first light of dawn, before Little Black could even chase the neighbor's rooster and ruin everyone's sleep, a shiny supercar was already parked outside my gate. Looking at the rearview mirror polished until it sparkled, my eyelid twitched. I turned to Zhang Qiaoran in the driver's seat and said, Ancestors above, why did you bring out your dad's car again? Zhang Qiaoran's family workshop was doing quite well. Her father had gritted his teeth and bought this supercar just to have face when negotiating business outside. Normally he polished it 3 times a day like a precious treasure. The last time she secretly took it out to drive me and my little brother around, her father's feather duster nearly plucked her bald. Don't worry. This time my old man specially allowed it. Zhang Qiaoran flicked her high ponytail and jumped out of the driver's seat. The saying goes, lose the battle but not the war. You're my best friend and the future CEO, who'll earn hundreds of millions. Going back for New Year's dinner naturally requires some grandeur. In the car, my mother, who was all the way in the Northeast, sent me a photo of the giant homemade ice lantern they had made, then transferred me 50,000 yuan along with a voice message. Be good at the Qin family. Don't let yourself get bullied no matter what. I hadn't told her about my biological parents' divorce. She still thought I was staying at the Qin villa. I replied, everything's fine, Mom. Thank you. Don't worry. Who would dare bully your daughter? Watching the natural way I chatted with my mother, both Shen Jingqian and Qinshu showed a flash of envy in their eyes. I noticed their gazes, smiled, and pulled 2 thick red envelopes from my backpack, stuffing one into each of their hands. You don't have to. We've already troubled you enough these past few days. Qinshu hurriedly refused. Take it. Consider it thanks for helping prune the grapevines. Zhang Chaoran spoke while driving. Stop being polite and just accept it. It's just wages for manual labor. What's there to be shy about? I shoved the envelopes back into their hands again. Thank you? Qinshu said softly. Shen Jingqin flipped the red envelope over and over in his hands for a long while before finally seeming to make up his mind. He directly stuffed the envelope into Qinshu's hand. When she tried to return it, he held her wrist. He spoke with utmost seriousness. Qinshu, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did to you before. I apologized once already. But after yesterday, I finally realized how ridiculous and arrogant my previous apology was. I still hadn't figured out how to say it properly. This is the perfect opportunity. I want to apologize to you properly this time. He took a light breath and continued. My greatest skill has always been nothing more than being born into a good family. The money in this envelope is the first time I've ever earned anything with my own labor. This is probably the best apology gift I can give right now, so I hope you can accept it. Qinshu held the envelope, looking a little dazed. She lowered her head and stared at the thin calluses on her palms, from using the electric pruning shears on the grapevines, remembering how exaggerated Shen Jingqin's reaction had been when he first noticed them. After a while, she raised her head. There was no look of being overwhelmed by favor, nor any forced politeness. She simply took a deep breath. Fine, Shen Jingqin. This time I accept your apology. Oh my god, the atmosphere is so normal I'm not used to it. Zhang Chaoran pretended to sniffle dramatically, breaking the solemn mood. Hurry up and switch to robot mode for me. Switch to robot mode. We laughed and chatted noisily the entire way, until we finally arrived at the Qin family's old mansion. As we got out of the car, Zhang Chaoran patted my shoulder. It was rare to see her look so serious. If anything happens, contact me immediately. Remember, your safety is the most important thing. Got it. I smiled to reassure her. Following the butler who came to greet us inside, I discovered the old mansion was already full of people. Even Shen Jingqin's grandmother was present. You're here. Come over and greet everyone. Old Master Qin waved me over. The butler led me forward and introduced each person one by one. When he reached my father's illegitimate son, Qin Guo, my eyebrows lifted slightly. Hello, little sister. I'm your older brother, Qin Guo. He proactively extended his hand toward me. I lowered my eyes and stared at that hand. In my mind flashed an image of this very hand holding a lit cigarette, slowly pressing it onto Zhao Wan's skin. Hello, brother. I reached out and shook his hand, gradually tightening my grip. Only when the expression on his face could no longer hold did I release him, smiling as I said, "We finally meet, big brother." Qin Guo's expression froze for a split second, but I had already walked straight over to Qin Yanyan. Perhaps a trace of killing intent still lingered on my face, because the moment her eyes met mine, the always confident Qin Yanyan clearly shrank back a little. Sister, she stammered. I heard you took Qinshu's necklace. Can you return it to her now? I asked. Perhaps she hadn't expected me to bring it up so directly without any preamble in this situation. Qin Yanyan instinctively denied it. I didn't. Qinshu. I turned my head and called. Qinshu. Qinshu immediately stepped forward with her phone. What if I did take it? If you've got guts, go sue me. Let's see who would believe you. Don't even mention that you're just a parentless orphan now. Even when you were still the Qin family's young miss, who really cared about you. Qin Yanyan's smug voice rang out from the phone recording. Her face instantly turned deathly pale, blood draining away completely. This isn't real. Seeing that Qin Yanyan had no way left to deny it, my so-called biological father finally couldn't sit still any longer and shouted, "Nuff, it's New Year's. Can you stop causing trouble?" I cut him off directly and turned to Qin Yanyan. I suggest you stop denying it. Making a scene at the police station during New Year wouldn't look good. I smiled faintly and looked at him. You don't want everyone to lose their festive mood, right, Dad? My biological father was rendered speechless by my words, seemingly unable to understand for a moment why I had used the exact line he had planned to use to suppress me. In the end, Qin Yanyan could only obediently hand over the necklace and apologize to Qinshu in front of everyone. The senior members of the Qin family present each showed different expressions at this outcome. Old Master Qin's eyes held clear appreciation, yet a trace of probing still lingered. On the other hand, Old Madam Shen's face was full of approval. Old Chin, this granddaughter of yours really has the same temperament I had when I was young. She laughed. I heard her studies are excellent too. She got into a top university. Yes, I nodded calmly. Automation and control engineering. Not bad. At least it's a proper major. She glanced at Qin Shu, who had just dared to confront Qin Yanyan for the first time, then at her grandson who had not jumped out to defend Qin Yanyan like before. The corners of her lips curved slightly. She even knows how to manage people. With that, she turned and smiled at my grandfather. In the future, when Qin Lin is handed over to this granddaughter of yours, we old folks can finally retire in peace. The moment she finished speaking, everyone's expressions shifted slightly. Even old Master Qin couldn't help coughing twice and quickly changed the subject, asking the butler why dinner hadn't started yet. After dinner, I had the driver take Qin Shu to my biological mother's place. Before coming to the Qin family, I had already greeted them in advance. Although this biological mother of mine wasn't exactly a traditional good mother, judging from how she had firmly made Qin Shu study business, she was at least a little better than my biological father. Besides, Qin Shu had mentioned that Madame Lin had been quite strict in raising her when she was young. Once Qin Shu had been sent off, Qin Gu proactively offered to show me around the old mansion. Shen Jingqun immediately stood up, wanting to come along. No need. I shook my head calmly. But Shen Jingqun looked at Qin Gu with obvious hostility and was about to say something when old Madame Shen pulled him back down. Sit properly and learn how to do things from beginning to end. Stop being so impatient all the time. Little sister seems to have quite a bit of hostility toward me. When we reached a quiet staircase in the southern part of the old mansion, Qin Guo suddenly stopped. He stood on a higher step, turning to look down at me from above, and then, I smiled faintly. You want to push me down just like you did to Zhao Wan. As I spoke, I stepped up, grabbed his collar with one hand, and spun us around, switching our positions. In the blink of an eye, our places were completely reversed. His entire body leaned backward, hanging suspended over the stairs. The only thing keeping him from falling was my hand gripping his collar. If I let go right now, do you think your head or your body will hit the ground first? I smiled and asked. Are you crazy? Let me go. Qin Gu frantically reached for the railing beside him. Are you serious? I deliberately loosened my grip a little, scaring him into immediately clutching my arm. Useless. I pulled him upright, but his legs had already gone soft. The moment he stood, he collapsed to the floor. A faint smell of urine slowly spread through the air. Zheng Xiying. Qin Gu snapped back to his senses, suddenly lifting his head. His eyes were bloodshot, his nostrils flaring violently. He looked like a beast that had lost control as he lunged straight at me. I'll kill you. I simply shifted slightly to the side, then kicked out. His entire body immediately tumbled down the stairs. Qin Gu's miserable scream finally drew everyone in the house over. The moment my so-called biological father saw his precious son in such a wretched state, he immediately raised his hand to slap me. I kicked the back of his knee, forcing him to drop to the floor. What exactly is going on here? Old Master Qin leaned on his cane and pounded it hard against the floor several times. I was only acting in self-defense. If you don't believe me, you can check the cameras. I pointed at the camera in the corner of the staircase. Old Ding, go check the footage, Old Master Qin ordered. But the butler, Ding, remained standing in place. With a troubled expression he explained, the camera on this side is broken. Old Master Qin glanced around. All the Qin family servants immediately lowered their heads in unison. At that moment Qin Yanyan ran over and tugged at Old Master Qin's sleeve. Grandpa, you have to stand up for my brother. She clearly did it on purpose. Interesting. I said indifferently. The Qin family's old mansion and the security cameras are all managed by a professional security company, right? What a coincidence. Today is the very day I returned, and my good older brother wanted to give me a tour of the old mansion. Even more coincidentally, every other camera in the house was working perfectly fine. Only this one had malfunctioned, and the incident had just happened to take place right here. So tell me, Qin Yanyan, which explanation sounds more believable? That I somehow possessed the power of foresight and knew this exact camera was broken, so I chose this spot to attack your brother? Or that someone deliberately sabotaged this camera, used the excuse of giving me a tour to lure me here, tried to make a move on me, but was so utterly useless that I turned the tables and fought back? Everyone present understood the implication perfectly. Given the Qin family's status, their security system was handled by the country's top professional company. Cameras didn't just break. On a whim, even if one did fail, it would be reported and replaced immediately. There was no way a blind spot like this could have existed for any length of time. Clearly, someone had arranged this in advance. And today was my very first visit to the old mansion. No matter how capable I was, I couldn't possibly have tampered with the Chun family's security system. Old Chun. At that moment, old Madame Shen spoke up. She pulled Shen Jingqun, who was trying to step forward, behind her and signaled him to stay quiet. Don't say anything. This is the Chun family's internal affair. Old Madam, I normally wouldn't interfere, she continued, but Zhang Xiying is the future heir of Qin Lin Technology and is engaged to my grandson Jing Qin. Whether as a shareholder or as an elder, I hope the Qin family will provide a proper explanation for this matter. With that, she took Shen Jingqin and left. I glanced at Qin Guo, who was now surrounded by the family doctor, then at old Master Qin, whose face had darkened but seemed lost in thought. I turned and followed them out. I'll walk old Madame Shen to the gate. Thank you for earlier, I said. Old Madame Shen smiled. Little girl, I like that temper of yours. I've also heard about your friend's situation. You're brave, loyal, and righteous, rare qualities. But our circle isn't that simple. No matter how useless Qin Guo is, he's still your grandfather's only biological grandson. Those shares in your name come with conditions, whether you want justice and how you go about getting it. You'll have to think it through carefully on your own. Yes, thank you for the advice. I'll remember it. I nodded. What are you two talking about? Why can't I understand anything? Shen Jingqun asked, confused. What does this have to do with Qin Guo and my friend? Old Madame Shen sighed helplessly. You went to someone's house for one visit, and all you did was play around. You kept telling me on the phone how much you truly liked her this time. Yet you couldn't even be bothered to investigate something this small. Grandma, what nonsense are you saying? When did I ever say I liked Zhang Xiying? Shen Jingqun flusteredly pulled old Madame Shen toward the car. The car's here. We should head back too. After seeing old Madame Shen off, I stood alone in the Qin family's large garden for a while until the butler came to find me, saying old Master Qin was waiting in his study. When I arrived, my biological father and Qin Yan Yan were already there. After our previous encounters, my biological father had finally realized I wasn't the kind of daughter he could mold and twist like Qin Shu or Qin Yan Yan. Sit. Old Master Qin said, gesturing for me to take a seat. What exactly happened today? He asked. How did you know Qin Guo deliberately had someone sabotage the camera to attack you? Because this wasn't the first time he tried. I pulled out my phone, opened a file, and handed it to old Master Qin. The girl in the photo was named Zhao Wan. I told you she was an outstanding student who received a full scholarship and direct admission to Ninghua High School, the elite academy under the Qin Corporation. The same school Qin Guo attended. She studied there peacefully for 2 years, consistently ranking high enough to get into Tsinghua or Peking University. Yet in the very first month of her senior year, she suddenly fell under mysterious circumstances. The school called it an accident, and the security footage from the scene was broken, just like the staircase camera today. But her body was covered in inexplicable injuries, even cigarette burns. I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. And right before that incident, only one thing had happened. You had secretly investigated my background. During that exact period, to help me prepare for the year's first major exam, she stayed by my side every day, tutoring me. We were inseparable. She even picked up the medical checkup reports you arranged, just so I could save time and focus on studying. Because of that, some people mistakenly thought she was the real Qin family heiress. So they bullied her at school, humiliated her, tried to destroy her before she could return to the Qin family, and even tried to kill her. It was an accident. Qin Yan Yan suddenly collapsed in tears. My brother never wanted her dead. She was the one who insisted on running. A sharp slap cut off Qin Yan Yan's words. I stood in front of her, looking down from above. Don't let me hear another filthy word about her come out of your mouth. If you do, don't blame me for being ruthless. When I was 7, my current foster parents adopted me. Before that, I had always lived in an orphanage. The harsh environment taught me how to fight for my share. I was full of hostility back then, and couldn't win anyone's heart. Even though my foster parents loved me dearly, none of the village kids would play with me. Zhao Wan was the first person who accepted me and was willing to be my friend. Later, when Zhang Chaoran's father built his workshop, she joined us too. Both Zhang Chaoran and I have terrible tempers. Zhao Wan was the youngest of the 3 of us, yet she was always like an older sister, taking care of us. Even my mother used to say that if Zhang Chao ran and I were left alone, we might accomplish great things, but they probably wouldn't be good things. Only when Zhao Wan was with us did the three of us truly become something special. My biological father snapped out of his shock and tried to raise his hand against me again, but old Master Qin's forceful slam on the table stopped him cold. "Sai Ying, sit down first," old Master Qin said. He let out a heavy sigh. "I already know everything you just told me. Rest assured, the Qin family will take full responsibility. I will arrange the best hospital and the best rehabilitation team for your friend, and we will provide appropriate compensation to her family. But Si Ying, regarding Qin Gu, before I called you here, the hospital already sent over his preliminary examination results. His left femur is shattered, he has a moderate concussion, and your kick broke 2 of his ribs. Si Ying, I know you carry hatred in your heart, but he has already received his retribution. I hope this matter can end here. If you agree, not only will you keep Qin Lin Technology, I will also transfer an additional 3% of Qin Corporation shares to you. Once you graduate, I will personally arrange for you to join Qin Corporation." Old Master Qin continued, "You should understand that the premise of you holding 34% of Qin Lin Technology is to protect the interests of Qin Corporation. And as the person in control of Qin Corporation, I have the right to reclaim 17% of those shares that belong to the corporation. This is a threat." I stared at old Master Qin's stern face and suddenly burst out laughing. "Grandpa, have you ever considered that you also bear responsibility for this? If you hadn't used the college entrance exam to evaluate my worth and tried to bring me back early, Qin Gu would never have mistaken Zhao Wan for me. If you hadn't indulged your only son, my biological father, in his reckless affairs outside the marriage and allowed him to raise the useless Qin Shu, where would an illegitimate son like Qin Gu have gotten the guts to act as the Qin family heir? Where would he have gotten the nerve to harm the real Qin family heiress?" Old Master Qin's face flushed red then purple from my words, yet he couldn't find a single rebuttal. I knew I had said enough, so I changed my tone. "I can agree to your terms. As long as Qin Gu doesn't provoke me first, I won't make the first move against him. Si Ying." Old Master Qin's expression was complicated. "Rest assured, if he dares to do anything to you again, I will strip him of all inheritance rights and personally send him to prison. Deal." I pulled a spare phone from my pocket. It had been recording the entire time. "I've remembered your words." I pushed back the chair and walked out. At the door, I turned my head. Of course, if Zhou Wan can wake up, I can also let go of the past with Qin Go. I spent one night on the unfamiliar bed in the Qin family mansion. I woke at 6 in the morning, unable to sleep any longer, so I went down to the garden to practice the diamond qigong. When I returned to my room, I happened to run into Qin Yanyan standing in the corridor, questioning Shen Jingqun, who had appeared out of nowhere. "Brother Jingqin, why didn't you speak up for me yesterday?" Shen Jingqun scratched his head in distress. "Yan, it was already wrong for me to always listen to only your side and target Qin Shu before. Of course I don't blame you. The main issue was that my own brain wasn't working properly. But from now on, the two of us should keep our distance." "Why?" Qin Yanyan asked through choked sobs. "Is it because of Zheng Xiying? Just because she looks a little more like the late youngest daughter than I do?" "My dear, it's not that." Shen Jingqin showed no irritation. "Can you stop talking nonsense? Zheng Xiying is Zheng Xiying, and the late Miss Zilan is the late Miss Zilan. Their personalities are nothing alike. Besides, you already know exactly why I helped you before, don't you? Brother Jingqun." Qin Yanyan sniffled pitifully. "Fine. If you're upset, you can hit me twice or ask for any compensation you want. But after this, we really must keep our distance." "I don't want to become the next Gumu," Shen Jingqin said. I had zero interest in participating in this kind of melodramatic scene, and turned to leave through the side door. I had only taken 2 steps when I heard Shen Jingqin's excited voice. "Sai Ying. Sai Ying." He ran over, glanced at my workout clothes, and searched for something to say. "You went for morning training. What are you doing here?" I asked, completely ignoring Qin Yanyan's gaze that felt like it could pierce through my back. "Aren't you supposed to go to the Lin family today?" "I came to take you." "Thanks. To be honest, I'm not too comfortable with the Qin family drivers anyway. Since Butler Ding could help Qin Gu sabotage a camera, who knows what other demons are lurking inside." After breakfast with old Master Qin, I got into the Shen family car and headed to the Lin family estate. Unlike the Qin family, the Lin family, my biological mother's side, had always been controlled by women. The previous head of the Lin family had been my grandmother, Lin Qingxi, and my biological mother, Lin Zhufang, was the current matriarch. When I arrived, the entire Lin family was already waiting outside the gate, including my grandmother in her wheelchair. As I stepped inside, a servant handed me a brand new pair of slippers they had prepared. Little Shu said you like purple. Old Madame Lin Qingxi smiled kindly at me. Thank you, Grandma, I replied. Good girl. She patted my shoulder gently. Is that your new little sister? At that moment, a small girl peeked out from behind Lin Zhufang, her bright eyes sparkling as she looked at me. I squatted down, nodded, and introduced myself. My name is Zheng Xiying. What's yours? The little girl ran out from behind her mother, puffed out her small chest, and announced proudly, I'm Lin Shanshan, the little shining sun. Then you must be really amazing. I nodded seriously. All right, go play with your big sister for a bit. Lin Zhufang ruffled the girl's hair, then turned to me. Follow me to Grandma Lin's study. The moment we sat down, I spoke first. Thank you. Old Madame Lin raised an eyebrow, looking slightly puzzled. I continued. After Zhao Wan's accident, a series of incidents kept happening around me, but each time they miraculously missed. Until the most serious car accident. Only then did I clearly realize someone had been secretly protecting me. And right after that accident, those unexpected events stopped completely. At first I thought it was old Master Qin, but later I discovered he knew nothing about it. Then, after hearing Qin Shu talk about your past, I realized you had always cared about her. During the divorce, although you didn't keep her, you had your assistant secretly transfer a special fund for her university tuition and living expenses. Even though Qin Shu was closer to my biological father when she was young, you still stubbornly taught her the basics of business. Even when you decided to have another child, you waited until Qin Shu had taken her college entrance exam. You even endured pressure from my biological father and insisted she finish her business degree before officially divorcing. If my biological father fought for the 34% shares for the sake of his illegitimate child, then your fight to keep those shares looks far more like a defense to protect the Lin family's interests. I looked at her and said, so I believe the person who has been secretly protecting me all along is you. And later, you used some method to make sure Qin Gu didn't dare cause me any more trouble, right? After all, you are the child I carried for 10 months and gave birth to. Lin Zhufang said calmly. But I'm very happy. You are exactly as the investigation file described, intelligent. She looked at me for a moment before continuing. If you have the ability, and you want Qin, Lin Technology, I can help you take it. After all, Qin, Lin Technology was founded to be left to the children in the first place. Not just Qin, Lin Technology, I said. I also want the entire Qin Corporation. Oh. Lin Zhufang raised an eyebrow slightly, but her eyes clearly sparkled with delight. After we finished our discussion, we left the study together. As we passed a decorative mirror in the hallway, old Madame Lin suddenly stopped and turned to look at our reflections. Everyone says you resemble the Qin family, but actually, you have the eyes of the Lin family. She pointed at the eyes in the mirror. Eyes almost identical to her own. Many people say the Lin family's gaze is too sharp, always filled with ambition. She smiled faintly. But I think it suits us perfectly. After reaching an agreement with Madame Lin, I returned to the Qin family. Before the start of the school term, old Master Qun threw me an extremely grand recognition banquet. During that time, Zhang Chaoran called to tell me the Qin family had chartered a private jet to send Zhao Wan abroad for the latest experimental treatment. Zhao Wan's grandmother had also been placed in the best nursing home. I knew this was the greatest sincerity old Master Qun could offer. And I kept my word. I no longer went looking for trouble with Qin Gu. After starting university, I returned to school and focused on my studies. I visited the Qin family once a month, but otherwise went back to my foster parents' house, and occasionally dropped by Madame Lin's place to chat. Qin Shu finally gathered the courage to tell Madame Lin that she didn't like the arts or business and had decided to retake a year of high school to apply for the medical school she had always dreamed of. At the beginning of our second year of university, Zhou Wan's treatment showed progress and she finally regained consciousness. Zhang Chaoran and I immediately got our passports and flew abroad to visit her. The moment we saw her sitting weakly in a wheelchair under the sunlight, smiling at us, the two of us couldn't hold back. We rushed forward, hugged her tightly, and burst into tears. It's okay now. It's all okay now. Her thin arms gently patted our backs, just like she had done countless times before when comforting us. Zhou Wan still needed to stay abroad for a while for further observation and physical rehabilitation. Zhang Chao ran and I could only return home and continue our studies. At the end of the first semester of our second year, Qin Shu successfully transferred into the medical school at our university. Zhang Chao ran and I threw her a huge celebration party, and also gave her a new mission to help Zhao Wan catch up on all the college entrance exam material. By then, Zhao Wan had returned to school and started her senior year over again. In my third year of university, Zhao Wan took the college entrance exam and performed steadily, becoming the provincial top scorer and getting into the mathematics department of University B. Zhang Chao ran, I began our internship at Kyun, Lin Technology. The following year, Qin was suppressed so thoroughly by Zhang Chao ran and me within the company that he couldn't even lift his head. That same year, with the support of Madame Lin and the Shen family, I officially took the position of CEO of Kyun, Lin Technology. Zhao Wan was directly admitted into a combined master's and PhD program. 3 years later, the research institute where Zhao Wan worked announced a collaboration with Kyun, Lin Technology. The Qin Corporation was facing a critical bottleneck in its development and urgently needed the technical patents from this partnership. Therefore, Old Master Qin announced the transfer of 15% of his personal shares in Qin Corporation to me, so I could assume the position of chairman of the Qin Corporation. During that period, Zhang Chao ran's family workshop used Qin, Lin Technology's advanced techniques and capital to transform into an electronics processing factory, while Gumo's family electronics workshop was quickly eliminated due to outdated technology. At the same time, I continued applying pressure on Qin Guo. Finally, in the second month after I became chairman of the Qin Corporation, he could no longer endure it and ordered someone to kidnap me. Unfortunately for him, everything had been under my surveillance. The only reason I let him succeed in capturing me was to solidify the criminal evidence against him. When Old Master Qin learned that Qin Guo had been arrested, he nearly stopped breathing. Thankfully, I had already arranged doctors and an ambulance. After he was revived, those sharp eyes that had always been so shrewd shed tears in front of me for the first time. It was clear he truly loved this useless grandson of his. But in the end, he kept the promise he made years ago. He did not stop me from sending Qin to prison, and even called in lawyers to revise his will, stripping Qin of all inheritance rights. Regarding that, I could only say to him, "Rest assured, Grandpa, I promise you that the child who will inherit the Qin Corporation in the future will definitely carry the Qin surname." Over the years I never changed my surname, because the people who truly gave me a family and parental love are my foster parents. But I also cannot deny that you have treated me very well all these years. Without your silent approval, I could never have smoothly taken over 2 major corporations. Although you carry quite a few deeply rooted traditional ideas, throughout all these years you have never once doubted my ability or restricted my growth. When I walked out of the hospital, Zhang Chao ran and Zhao Wan were already waiting for me outside. Just like the day I walked out of the exam hall, after the college entrance exam, they stood under the sunlight, waiting to go home with me. Ever since I became CEO, my foster parents had transferred their logistics fleet. Now they rented a fish pond and opened a small eco-farm. Their income wasn't as high as before, but they no longer had to drive long distances. The work was much lighter and safer. I had told them they could actually retire, but my parents, who had worked hard their whole lives, simply couldn't sit still. They said frankly, "We're still young. We can still earn money. There's no such thing as letting our daughters support us when we're barely over 50. That weekend, right after I finished the early stage of a new project, I invited Qin Shu, Madame Lin, and old Madame Shen to my foster parents' farm for a relaxing get-together. That day, I happened to need to report on Qin Corporation matters to Old Master Qin, so we rode in the same car. The moment we arrived, his fishing addiction kicked in again. He grabbed his rod and went to find a spot by the pond. Zhang Chao ran and Zhao Wan called me over to eat barbecue. Shen Jingqin brought a plate of grilled skewers to me and asked, "When are you finally going to remove the word future from my title as your fiancé? Look at little Feng. He's already this big." Hearing his name, my little brother immediately ran over. He shoved Shen Jingqin aside with his butt and handed me a peeled tangerine. "Do you even know how to take care of someone?" He glared at Shen Jingqin. "My sister always eats some fruit before barbecue to line her stomach. You don't even know such a simple thing, yet you want to be my brother-in-law." The first time he met Shen Jingqin, he was only 11. Now he was about to graduate from university. "You're the only one who knows everything," Shen Jingqin retorted, unconvinced. "Of course." My little brother lifted his head proudly. "I'm the younger brother brought by fate to my sister." "Huh." Qin Shu looked a little confused. My foster mother turned her head and explained, before we adopted Si Ying, the doctor diagnosed us as having great difficulty conceiving. But after Sai Ying came, I got pregnant with little Feng. According to the old saying, although we were fated not to have children, Sai Ying was fated to bring siblings, so little Feng was brought by Si Ying. Exactly. My little brother said triumphantly. That's why my name is Zheng Xinfeng, because I was born entirely to thank my sister. All right. I waved my hand. Go get your sister a Coke. Yes. My little brother immediately ran off. After we finished the barbecue, I leaned against the railing by the fish pond to enjoy the breeze. Lin Zhufang walked over and draped a shawl over my shoulders. Are you really not going to give that Shen boy an official status? Didn't you say that after finishing this project, you'd take some time off to prepare for pregnancy and give birth to an heir? What about you? I adjusted the shawl on my shoulder and looked toward Lin Shanshan and her biological father in the distance. Isn't he the first love you could never forget? Shanshan is already this big. Why haven't you given him an official status yet? First love I could never forget. Lin Zhufang chuckled softly. If he were truly that good, I wouldn't have broken up with him back then and married your father. I'm not as foolish as your father. It was only an unexpected pregnancy with Shanshan later, and I didn't mind having someone around who could keep me warm. Besides, he has the body, the face, decent family background and education, and he is Shanshan's biological father. She continued, As for official status, with my position, marriage and divorce would bring far too many entangled interests. This way is better. It doesn't affect him taking care of Shanshan, and it doesn't complicate our relationship further. Might as well keep things exactly as they are. I shrugged and looked at her. Lin Zhufang paused for a moment, then looked back at me. The two of us almost simultaneously burst into laughter. In that laughter, little Black leisurely swam past us in the fish pond, gently flapping his white wings. The water's surface rippled with soft, gentle waves.